it's wonderful when pregnancy and birth can be a joyous experience. I know that there are lots of ups and downs that can be encountered both emotionally and physically, but to help women find the joy in whatever situation they have, whatever way the baby actually is born, is really what is most empowering for women and for the whole family, is to feel empowered and to feel joy.
Yeah. And I believe those are wonderful words to introduce you.
Okay.
Ava Võsu is a founding member of the Ontario Association of Midwives and the first Canadian representative for the Midwife Alliance of North America. Ava Võsu has been attending births since 1978, that's before I was born, when she began training to become a midwife in New Mexico and Texas, since there was no midwifery training or licensing available in Canada. She has been a pioneer in bringing midwifery to the women of Ontario by helping to transform the profession from a handful of lay midwives working underground to becoming licensed healthcare professionals and part of Ontario's healthcare system. She attended over 1,200 births. Did I spell that right?
Yes.
600 home births and 100 water births. She was the first midwife to work in the North Bay Hospital and devoted 30 years of her life to develop the profession in North America. Her daughter is now a registered midwife working in Ottawa. Welcome to our podcast, Ava.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here.
Ava, we're so happy to have you here, and I'm super excited to have this conversation with you today. It was such a privilege to meet you at the beginning of May in your beautiful home in Northern Ontario.
It was really nice to meet you as well, Paula, and nice to be able to share the space on the lake, on Maquabi Lake, with you and your brother. It's been really nice to have you both here in my home, and knowing that things were being well taken care of.
Well, thank you so much for your generosity. I shared with you when we met that we are going to, my husband Paul and I are going to be grandparents for the first time around the end of June. So this conversation to me is so exciting and so timely. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for having me. I also have had my first two grandchildren this year, and that has been really exciting and wonderful and rewarding for me that both my daughters were able to have a midwife, and they both were actually able to have home births in Ottawa. So that's really very, very rewarding, considering how difficult it was in 1978 to be able to have those services, to be able to have, there were no midwives or home birth opportunities, very, very few. So it's great to see that things have progressed to the point that my daughters now can actually access that care. Unfortunately, not everyone has been able to access the care, because there's still a great need for more work to be done, for more midwives to be educated and registered, and to be able to obtain hospital privileges so that they can work in Ontario.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I mentioned to you that our daughter wanted to have a midwife, and unfortunately in our area, I guess they were full capacity, and that she wasn't able to have that possibility. So we're moving forward without that possibility and look forward to our conversation today.
Okay, sounds great.
So let's get started talking a little bit about, like, just listening to what you have done in your past, and being this pioneer in midwifery in Ontario. And to me, it's near and dear to my heart. As you know, I grew up in North Bay area. So the fact that, you know, you're in the North, you brought that to the North in a time where it really wasn't widely accepted. So what was your inner calling? Like, what kept you moving forward despite all the resistance around about midwifery?
My journey with midwifery started first by having a friend who had twins at home in 1972, and which was followed by a hospital birth that was just a really challenging situation, having had a very normal birth with her twins. And that inspired me to start thinking about midwifery and the value of midwifery. And I read two books that were published in the early 70s, Spiritual Midwifery by Ina May Gaskin and Birth Book by Raven Lang. And they really inspired me to be thinking about why midwifery was so important, and how a baby is born is so incredibly important, not just for the birth of the baby, but for the mother and the whole family experience. And so when I was pregnant in 1978, I really wanted to have a midwife in North Bay. And although I looked for the entire pregnancy, it was not something that I could find. Basically, I was told 3 pushes and we used forceps, and husbands weren't allowed in the delivery room, and you had a little steel gurney that you lay on with a big light above. And that was not the way I wanted to give birth, having known and read about spiritual midwifery. So I continued looking for a midwife and found it extremely difficult. I finally found a woman who had very little experience, but I felt like that was better than the alternative at the time, which was very high-tech hospital delivery. And so I ended up having a home birth with the midwife, and at 3 days after the birth, my baby became ill, and it ended up that my baby had got meningitis and passed away at 3 days. So that was really such a strong and powerful experience that I just heard a voice that told me that I needed to bridge the gap between high-tech obstetrics and no midwives available in Ontario. And so within 6 weeks after my own birth, I was in New Mexico looking for training because I had heard that there was a little school in El Paso. And I went to that school to apply. And of course, she told me to come back in a year, and felt that I needed to do some healing, which is very wise of her. And then I met this lovely granny midwife who had delivered thousands of babies in a little village, little town of Las Vegas, New Mexico. And so I was able to spend time with her, and I realized that having gone through home birth and loss gave me something that was so important. If another woman lost a baby, that I could have that empathy, and I really truly knew what it meant to go through a newborn loss and could support her. And so that really is what kept me going. What really kept my passion going was the birth of my first son, was my inspiration. And really, I would say that has been my inspiration since 1978, has kept me very dedicated to wanting to make sure that not only that women have access to midwifery care, but that they actually have access to midwives who are trained and have the knowledge and experience required for safe delivery. And so it has been a lifelong quest for me to help women understand why it's important, not just to have the home birth or the hospital birth but to have somebody who is actually recognized and trained to be able to recognize complications and when things are abnormal. So it's part of my passion is to try to make sure that all women can have access to midwifery care, not just 20% of women in Ontario, for instance, or around the world. There are many women would like the care, but still cannot access it.
Wow. I feel very touched by your story. And I can't imagine how challenging that must have been for you to experience that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely was very difficult. And especially when all through the pregnancy, you feel like you're doing everything to be in the healthiest state, taking your prenatal vitamins, learning, doing all the education, doing everything to avoid harm to your baby. And then to suddenly have that face that loss, and having at the time 6 or 7 women in my community all pregnant, and knowing that to be there with empty arms would be a very difficult situation, and also to just know that I had a greater purpose, that I needed to go and do something, and I needed to transform that experience into something that was positive and that would have lasting effects. So I feel that that's really what kept me going, even though there were many challenges along the way, is just that dedication to really to the birth of my son, and to acknowledge what an empowering event it was. It was a beautiful home birth. However, I wish retrospectively that I had been able to be supported with more knowledge and recognition of symptoms, and why it's so important to have trained, qualified midwives to help.
Wow. Such courage, such courage you have. You can see how it's really touched me. Such courage you have to share that with us. And I see how that really propelled you forward to honor your son, to make such a positive difference. And I'm just thinking not only in your community, but within Ontario, being that pioneer. It's so powerful. Thank you on behalf of all women for doing that for us.
Yeah, it has been very rewarding too, in many ways, to see midwifery move forward, and not just in Ontario, but throughout North America. Having sat on the board of directors and being the first Canadian representative for the Midwives Alliance of North America, it also gave me the opportunity to foresee some of the difficulties that could be encountered with legislation of midwifery, and also how important it was throughout the world to group together as midwives and bring forward that traditional knowledge that has been passed down through the ages in some cultures, and was almost lost. It was almost a lost art. And the women who really worked hard to bring midwifery back, some of the early pioneering midwives like Raven Lang and Ina May Gaskin, really helped women understand why childbirth has such a profound impact on the rest of their life and their partner, their family, the baby, and that when a baby is born with love and kindness, that it creates a good beginning, instead of a baby being born in a complete medical procedure, which sometimes is necessary. And but even under a medical procedure, a baby can be born with compassion and love and caring. And even a cesarean section can be an absolutely beautiful birth experience if a woman has the right support and encouragement around her. So there are many different ways for babies to be born. And I think a big misconception with midwifery is that midwives only deliver babies at home. And in Ontario, midwives deliver about, I believe it's only about 30% of babies that midwives attend are born at home. The others, probably maybe 10% are born in the birth centers. There are two, one in Ottawa and one in Toronto. And some midwives have small birth centers at their clinics. And then the other 60% or 70% are born in hospital with the help of a midwife. So,
Wow. I love how you've talked about, that really midwifery is reclaiming that experience that was, often in our traditional cultures, our traditional communities, not having as a medical event, but very much the support of, the mom, the family, the baby. And I'm just wondering if we truly understood that birth is a foundation for our lifelong well-being, how might we be caring for mothers and babies and families differently?
I think that the Aboriginal midwives actually have really embraced their traditional histories in bringing birth forward as a family unit and as something an event to celebrate. A lot of the elder women gather together around the birthing mother and use some of the traditional wisdom of herbs and different ceremonies, possibly burning sage as a smudge. So it's quite beautiful actually to see how the First Nations people of Ontario have really embraced traditional roots in midwifery care and surrounding the woman with family. So I always also try to incorporate some of that in my own midwifery. I learned about using herbs and homeopathics and some little bit of ceremony, singing, different ways to help relax the mother in labor, and many different methods like changing positions, letting women go with their own flow, whether they want to be on their hands and knees or standing or squatting or using a birth stool or a water birth, being in the water. All these ways are ways to help women have a more comfortable and relaxed birth and not be so dependent on medication for pain relief, to be able to be supported in ways that help a woman relax so that she can have the baby. And I think being supported by people who are caring and know you has a lot to do with your whole nervous system and fear and how a woman can give birth. I mean, to have the right encouragement, to have her partner understand and have some knowledge about birth, to maybe have some hypnobirthing to prepare a woman for the birthing experience. All these things together, and whatever feels comfortable for the person. Some people are not comfortable with some of those methods, but really, it's really helping women be at the center of their own care, at the center of their choices, and at the center of deciding what is appropriate for them and having someone help them make those decisions. So whether it's a home birth, a hospital birth, a birth center birth, it's really just having the support to feel that you do have the choices. And one of the pillars of midwifery care has always been informed choice. So midwives are always trying to offer women what their options are, what their choices may be, and to support the woman ultimately in whatever her choice may be, even if it may not be what the midwife would recommend. She can give her recommendations, but it's really ultimately up to the woman to make her decisions and be at the center of her care.
That sounds to me very empowering for women, you know, emotionally empowering for women and our future generations.
Mm-hmm. I think so. And I think now it's also important to recognize that it's not only women who are having babies. So if, in my daughter's terminology, she often talks about the birthing person, because in this day and age, there are so many different ways of having babies. So uh, after I had retired, one of my old clients asked me if I would just come to her birth as a support person, because she was being a surrogate mother for two gay men who came from Spain, who could not have that experience in Spain. And so in their case, they picked an egg from Holland. They put their sperms together because they didn't want to know whose the actually baby biologically it was, and then the egg was implanted into my old client, all through a Canadian organization, and so between the three of them, they brought a baby into the world. And I have to say, they were the loveliest couple. These two men were so loving and kind to to the woman who had the baby for them. And she already had had 5 children of her own. And this birth ended up being a cesarean section at the end. So for her to give up so much of her um, body and generosity. And she did it because she knew that this was a beautiful gift that she could give these people. There's no money involved in surrogacy in that situation. And so the government helps cover your expenses, but there's no monetary exchange for being a surrogate. And so it really opened my eyes to see that midwifery care and childbirth actually goes beyond the traditional woman. And so I know in my language, I still speak of it as the woman giving birth. Uh, and then, but there's so many different options now with people choosing different paths. So
Yeah, it's really in every case, the family giving birth.
yes, it really is. And so, it's beautiful when a woman has a really strong support system, when she has a supportive partner, but it's not always the case. And sometimes it's a supportive mother or a girlfriend, or um, you know, there are so many different situations that come up. And for me, it's really beautiful to see how midwifery has expanded from being, let's say, the spiritual midwife and helping women have this lovely, positive home birth, to being able to work in hospitals, to be able to consult with obstetricians and work as a team in some situations with nurses, to be able to, in my daughter's case, she's able to start inductions and manage epidurals, and her scope has increased so much that she can provide immunizations for a baby. We take care of babies for 6 weeks postpartum. So I think what's really important for women to understand is that midwifery care starts right as soon as a woman conceives, and as soon as she knows she's pregnant. If a woman wants to have midwifery, she really needs to try to reach out right away, or to know even before she gets pregnant what midwives would be available in her community and how to access the care, to get on the waiting list immediately, because as in your daughter's situation, many women aren't able to access the care because there's only a limited number of midwives in Ontario, although it is over 1,000 midwives practicing, and you have to be a registered midwife because they are protected acts. internal vaginal exam is a protected act. So these are things that are important when somebody's thinking about having a midwife, is to do the research in advance, to be prepared, how to find the midwife and know what kinds of questions to ask, to find out if it's the right person for you. Some women now, lots of women are having doulas, but a doula is not licensed to do any of the protected acts. So she's not there to be the one who's going to deliver the baby. She can be there in the supportive role, providing encouragement and support and guidance. And it can be a wonderful addition to midwifery care. But there is a big difference between what a doula is allowed to do and what a midwife is able to do. And it really depends on the community as well as to what the midwife's scope of practice is. So, for instance, if a midwife detects that a woman has become high risk or has risk factors, then there's a whole consultation, transfer of care. And if a midwife and a client decide that the care has become high risk or requires an obstetrician, then a midwife still follows her. She doesn't just drop the ball when the woman goes to an obstetrician. She follows all the way through, attends the birth in most cases, even if it's a cesarean, and most importantly, provides 6 weeks of care after the birth. So that is really key in so many situations, to be able to follow up on breastfeeding, baby's weight, jaundice, and it really helps prevent a lot of babies from being admitted into the hospital postpartum, because the midwife is following along. She's available by phone to answer questions, provide support, emotional support, and also links to other caregivers like social workers, and to recognize if there's a concern with postpartum depression. And so a midwife really is key. And I think for me, one of the biggest challenges still is that only 20% of women are able to access midwifery care in Ontario. And I believe that all women, regardless of what their choice in childbirth is, and even if they're having an obstetrician, that all women should still be entitled to midwifery care for the whole package, for all the prenatal support, emotional, physical, mental, and all that support postpartum, home visits. Midwives do about 3 visits to the home after the birth, and usually do a visit prior to the birth, so they get to really understand and know what a woman's social circumstances are, to recognize if there is abuse, or if there's poverty that needs to be addressed, or lack of resources, or so many things are recognized by a home visit. So these are all aspects that I think are so important for a safe childbirth. And it's in my daughter's practice, they have extra funding for a midwife to even go out into the community and approach women who are pregnant on the streets and provide basic prenatal care, even if it's at Tim Hortons, to do a blood pressure check, to get them registered, and to get them into the healthcare system so that they don't just show up and emerge in full-blown labor. And so these are aspects that really move deep into society, because it's not just that skim of highly educated women who know what they want. And midwifery care should be for all women of all categories and classes, and as I said, women, men, whatever gender people are, everyone should be respected and honored in their choices and given choices.
Yeah, and given choices. The scope of this beautiful vocation like really touches me. And the fact that they would reach out to the unhoused, like that to
Mhm.
me is just so beautiful. Doris, I'm just wondering if anything's bubbling up for you.
Yeah, I've been sinking in this autonomy, authenticity, this care and support that you're just radiating. You're so grounded in that. I feel that's probably because of all the women you already supported. But there is curiosity lighting in me because I believe, in my view, that many women don't experience that, either because it's not available, either
Mhm.
because they're not in that state, even if you know that care and support is there, they're not able to perceive it. So I wonder, and for me, that goes to a society where really everything we do is often based on fear. Also, a healthcare system might often be based on fear. Even women getting pregnant. I'm hearing now young families are even afraid of how they will financially support babies. So it's like feels like even people don't want to have babies, not only from maybe health fears or what the child brings, but even like will I be able to support it financially. But looking from a pregnancy view and maybe birth view of fear, and how would you comment on that? How do you see this fear-based culture?
I think that what you're um, talking about is very real. In my own family, my son has said, well, we can't afford to have a baby in this day and age. And I hear that often now, that many people don't feel that they can afford to have a baby, or they're not emotionally ready. They don't have enough support to have a child. And I don't know what the solution is, but I think that one way that people can find some of the support, even if they don't want to have a midwife, one of the ways is to reach out and have the support of a doula, which is a person, a woman usually, who supports you through the pregnancy emotionally and generally attends the birth, whether it's with a doctor or with a midwife. Some midwives or some doulas are actually attending births without any other caregiver. It's called a free birth, which is becoming quite popular when people can't find a midwife. And it is a bit concerning because without the ability to assess anything, to not be able to listen to the heart tones, or not be able to do an internal exam, or not be able to have any equipment, no oxygen or um, suctioning equipment. If you have a sudden emergency, a midwife is highly trained to deal with a very tight cord around the neck, or shoulder dystocia, or whatever. So if you have, or a baby who's not breathing, but if it's a doula, she's not legally allowed to do anything other than be there as an emotional support. So I think people really need to be very aware of who they're having attend them in birth. And I guess the other ways of preparing yourself, if you do decide to have a baby, is to read, to learn. I mean, there's lots on the internet, but it's not always uh, evidence-based, or it's not always information that is actually true. That so I think finding a few of the traditional midwifery books by authors who have attended lots of births, those can be ways of having some emotional support. Hypnobirthing is another way that women or people can become more comfortable with the idea and concept of childbirth. There are several women people who are hypnobirthers and do hypnosis or visualization to help a woman relax and feel more confident and comfortable in her body and her birth experience. But the psychosocial, the whole aspect of being in situations that are difficult and challenging, that is, I think, something that will really take time to figure out how does society help women. And I think so many women don't have the support that they need, both postpartum, both in the emotional support, the difficulty of a crying baby and not having answers, not having enough money. All these things are areas that we need to wrap ourselves around. And there are there's more access to like social work especially through the hospital. Like if usually women are assessed at some point in pregnancy for their social circumstances. And in my hospital, for instance, at 28 weeks, all women went in for a prenatal registration. And in that registration, they spent an hour with a nurse who did a whole psychosocial assessment. And if it was recognized that a woman didn't have the resources or the capabilities or was short in whatever way, that a social worker was assigned to her to help her with her emotional, mental, physical requirements. So that, I guess, is one way that we can help. And then if you do have a midwife is going to usually pick up on all of these aspects and often offer different possibilities. My older daughter, she was able to access through her benefits a postpartum social worker, like a doula or a woman who came to her house once or twice a week to help with whatever it was that she needed, whether it was take the baby so she could go have a sleep for a few hours, or chop up vegetables and put stuff in the fridge for her, or do some light housekeeping. So there are more and more services all the time. Some doulas offer these kinds of services. In my daughter's case, it was covered by her husband's benefits, which was great under social work, but that is something that may only be a program that was offered in Ottawa. There are now in bigger cities lots of groups for mommy and me time, helping women get out of the house and with their babies and communicating with other mothers and recognizing that there are many areas that need to be addressed, and having the support of other mothers who are going through similar situations. All those things can really help. Having postpartum yoga, or my one daughter is taking postpartum boxing with her baby. so there are many different ways to help women integrate and adjust, especially if you've been a highly professional woman and you have no other friends who are pregnant at the time. To have these mother and baby support groups are wonderful. So there are so many different ways women need to be supported, not just the women who don't have access to care, but also women who are highly educated and still don't feel the support that they need, because it's such a huge transition from the professional world or whatever world you live in to becoming a mother. And people don't realize what a big jump it is. And another thing that's really beautiful is that now husbands often get a paternity leave of 2 to 4 months or even more. And that is so important for a father to be able to be there and be involved and see how much commitment, devotion it takes to breastfeed a baby if that's what you're choosing, or pumping your breast milk and working with engorgement and all the emotional ups and downs. There's so many aspects. So the more that the family can participate, a mother, a grandmother, a sister, a good friend, we really need to wrap around women in the process of becoming parents, or as I said, even with a gay couple, they're going to encounter all kinds of situations as well. So just supporting people and trying to find those supports. And I know that not everybody has them, and some people are very isolated. So
what I'm hearing is how you approach fear is really by investigating what the actual fear is, because it can have so many layers, and educate yourself, find information, because you've just listed so many options that probably open another options. So it's really about that willingness to explore. And you've mentioned so well the transition from that maybe highly educated and effective woman to a mother is completely different experience. So that's reflected also for me, going from corporate world, thinking how the birth and the parenting would look like, and then actually doing it. It was really hard to actually be in both roles, so much that I eventually decided to step out of the corporate world, and I did have support, and it was a very supportive environment, but how to say, the disconnection of the corporate world, or the difference, is so huge. It's really hard to explain, and this is what I'm hearing in your words. That's the hard transition nobody can actually prepare you for, and it takes a lot of learning and finding your way, actually.
Yeah. And there are many people who don't have the support, so trying to educate yourself, but then there are many people who aren't even going to educate themselves. Or I find this newer generation isn't interested in reading books. They want to get everything off the internet. So how to access the information is, and the willingness to access the information, and to, like you say, to get over the fear and the many layers that there are. And like I hear people say, oh, you lied to me, you didn't tell me how much this was going to hurt. Or so it's helping women through the pain of childbirth in a supportive way. And with all those home births, I didn't offer any kind of medication or drugs, other than a lot of encouragement, natural support. Warm water is a huge way, analgesic, in the sense that it relaxes the muscles. It relaxes a woman, usually, if she likes water. So there are many ways to help a woman overcome pain, but it really can take a lot of one-on-one support. And it can be, as you said, very difficult to bridge the two worlds of the corporate world or the working as a professional person. And many women now aren't having their babies until their mid-30s, and they're so used to being very independent and free. And so now to suddenly have a baby that requires 24 hours a day of your warmth and care and love, and neurologically, studies show that babies need to be connected and close to their mother, and hopefully able to breastfeed, but because there's a whole link that happens between the mother and baby during breastfeeding, and the bonding and everything that is built during that relationship, but it's not always possible for everybody. So if they're bottle feeding, hopefully they're able to pump enough milk, and if they can't, maybe they get donated breast milk, or there are so many different ways of trying to help establish the bond between mother and baby. And it's a really big transition, and understanding that.
Can I maybe ask one more question, because we are transitioning to baby, and
Yes.
I would just really love to know, in your perspective, all this care and support that we give to women to really feel supported and calm through the birth, or even before, through the pregnancy. How does this affect the baby? Maybe even the nervous system, what's also maybe my motivation would be my kids, why I'm doing this, what is also my baby gaining? Would you reflect also on that?
There have been many different studies done on the effect of pregnancy on the baby, and many people, like people who've studied primal therapy, believe that the mother's thoughts do affect the baby as it's growing in utero, and even hearing music in pregnancy can affect the baby's nervous system. And so having a birth where the baby is born with love and gentleness as much as possible, to avoid some of the technology if possible. Nowadays, we don't use forceps as much. So these interventions can not only affect the baby physically, but if a baby is born into bright lights, for instance, there's that initial shock. And so we try as much as possible to have birth be a really gentle beginning for the baby. And by loving the mother and by helping her with kindness and support to get through the labor, and to be gentle with the baby when it's born, delay the cutting of the cord so the baby gets its blood volume, giving the baby immediately to the mother so there's skin to skin bonding right away. All these things are so important. And even with cesarean now, babies are handed right to the mother, right, put on her chest, if it's possible, if there's not a concern with the baby. So we have realized that this bonding that takes place immediately at birth is so important for the baby and for the mother, to feel the connection, to feel the love, to have the lights low so that it's not a shock, to not separate the baby from the mother, to be able to hear the mother's heartbeat, to feel her warmth, to have that whole connection, neurological connection between mother and baby, and how we can support that skin to skin contact, and even skin to skin with the father, for the father to take his t-shirt off and put the baby naked against their skin. These are different ways that can help the baby feel the heartbeat and the comfort and the warmth. And I believe that separating babies at birth is one of the ways that that we can hopefully try to not have to separate babies, to keep them close. And I know there's a big move towards putting babies in a separate room, sleep training, but studies show that these things are against the neurological connection between mother and baby, and that if a baby sleeps with a mother, that baby gets to spend thousands of hours close to the mother's heartbeat and to the mother's warmth and having that bond. And when a baby is separated and put in a separate room, there's a disconnection there. The baby can feel isolated and afraid that nobody responds to it. And in all cultures throughout the world, babies are kept close to the mother, and North America, we have this concept that babies should be sleep trained and put in a crib and stuck in another room. And most of us, if we have an intimate relationship or have an intimate partner, we want to sleep with that other person. We want that warmth and closeness. And so why to isolate a baby from its mother? Because there's this idea that, oh, they should sleep in a cot or a crib. So I think that's all part of bonding, and so is how we feed the baby, how we hold the baby, and for mothers to really keep that baby close. I mean, it's such a short window of opportunity. It's such a short time a year to dedicate to this new person whose brain is developing so rapidly, to isolate the baby from yourself because, oh, you're too busy or you have other things to do or you're on your cell phone all the time, you've got that blue light radiating towards your baby, or all these things are ways that we're disconnected, or you're looking at your phone more than you're looking at your baby. And bonding comes through that connection, talking to your baby, looking at your baby, communicating, having your baby feel like it's part of you still. I mean, it's been part of you for 9 months, and now to suddenly be separated and isolated from you has to be difficult for this baby to. It's always heard your heartbeat, and now to suddenly not hear it anymore, to not have that comfort, that warmth, that swooshing sound in utero, all these things that comfort the baby. So I believe that having a slow separation from the mother is important for the baby's neurological development and for bonding, and for the mother as well, to feel that connection.
Yeah, you've lightened so much, shine a light on the importance of connection, as we're humans are social beings, connection is at our core of our needs. But I will transition here to Paula to lead us into the last section of our amazing podcast.
Yeah, and that was just so beautiful, expressing that connection, that bonding, that belonging, that attachment, and how that really is a critical piece for the baby, the mom, the family, and really for future generations. Like it's so powerful. And I'm just wondering, I know you have a beautiful practice, and I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about it, share it with us.
Do you mean the practice of midwifery or the practice of the Blessingway, or?
Yeah, the Blessingway would be wonderful.
All right. So when I first started doing midwifery, I went to a midwives conference up in the mountains of New Mexico, and it was the first gathering I went to with about 100 women from all over North America who were keen to learn about midwifery. That was in 1979. And this lovely midwife from California, Raven Lang, brought a ceremony to us that was a Navajo ceremony. It was called a Blessingway ceremony, and she was directed to share that ceremony with people throughout the world. And the ceremony is really, it's a way to bless a pregnant woman before she has the baby. And usually it's done fairly close to the time of the delivery, maybe a few weeks before. And it's a time to just really honor her and help her feel like she is loved and cherished, and bless her for the journey of giving birth. And so usually a friend, someone close to the mother, organizes the Blessingway. So it's a little different from a traditional baby shower in that you invite her closest women, friends, and little girls. It's sort of a women's circle. And I always ask people to wear beautiful colors, bring lots of flowers. They can be picked from the gardens or picked from the roadside. And we'll set up a throne for the mother with a nice colorful blanket, and we gather usually cedar boughs and flowers. And while we're doing the Blessingway ceremony, we have the mother sit in this throne, and we just nourish her and love her and take care of her. We comb her hair, and we put her feet into a herbal bath so she can relax. And little girls may come up and massage her arms and hands and feet, and we usually make her a crown out of cedar and flowers that we put on her head. And the women sit in a circle to bless her, bringing little gifts of sort of more of a spiritual nature for the baby and mother, or mother, maybe something nice for her birth, or maybe a beautiful beeswax candle, or someone might bring moccasins for the baby, and some of the gifts can be in the way of a poem or a song or sharing something. And one of the really beautiful things with doing a blessing way is that every person in the circle shares an expression with the mother of their connection with her, what she means to them, because we're really not acknowledged enough. We socialize with people, but we don't really tell them how much they mean to us, or give them some encouragement about being prepared for the birth. And so it's usually a couple of hours, and we often have, there are Blessingway songs, which are a lot of traditional songs. There are tapes that are made that can give women ideas. Sometimes people bring drums, and whatever moves people to help create a circle, and a circle that's like a sacred circle around the mother. We often burn some cedar, just to create intention and to create an atmosphere that is honoring the woman. And so it's really all about honoring her path of birth, surrounding her with lots of love, color, flowers, having a potluck, bringing beautiful food together to share afterwards. And there are all kinds of different little rituals that have been done in blessing ways, sometimes throwing a ball of wool back and forth and weaving a web of connection amongst the women and the pregnant mother. So especially in my early years in my community, I often tried to hold blessing ways for the women, or I would talk to one of their close friends and have her help organize the event, so that, and often the midwife would help be of service. So she would bathe her feet and rub them with oil after, and cornmeal. And so these are all some of the traditions that were adapted from the Navajo Blessing Way ceremony. And yeah, so.
Wow. I wish that I would have experienced that as, a pregnant mom. And I would love to be able to do that for our daughters. And what a beautiful way of honoring women, honoring families, honoring babies, and just really welcoming them in to
Yeah.
our world. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. This has been so incredible, and just so deeply appreciative of you sharing so much with us today.
There's a lawnmower in my yard.
Oh, you know what? That's okay. We can't hear it. We're just coming to a close, and I'm just wondering, I know you've got some projects on the go. Is there a way that people can learn more about you or connect with you?
So I do have a little YouTube channel where, and I will give you the link for that afterwards. And and people can reach out by email. I am working on a memoir or a book about midwifery. It's been a kind of a lifelong or midwifery long journal, but I'm also wanting to incorporate some of the things that we've talked about, how to find a midwife and things that are important in midwifery care, sharing some births and so forth. So yeah, so those are probably the best ways to reach out. Once I actually get the book published, I can get back to you and maybe we can reconnect at that time.
I would love that, and I look forward to reading that book.
Okay.
And we will include your YouTube channel in our description so that if people want to connect with you that way, they can check it out as
Okay.
well.
Yeah, that sounds
Doris,
great.
yeah, I just want to say I'm so appreciative. I've learned so much about the importance of midwifery and also how important it is that we support women, our babies, our families for the emotional well-being of, our future society. So thank you, from my heart, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity and for your really interesting questions and ability to be able to share some of the important aspects of midwifery care with the world, really, with anybody who's interested in listening, and hopefully more and more women find the support they need to have a beautiful and positive birth and parenting experience in whatever way they need that support.
Thank you. And Doris, is there anything that you wanted to add before we close?
Well, I was thinking of, that's also a big topic we could open, We could be that supported through whole our lives, maybe not only in time of pregnancy, and of course also support each other in families, not only the women, but also men and everyone in our community. So such a valuable topic. I wonder if you would be willing to share one person that maybe inspires your path.
Well, I guess the biggest inspiration really was my first baby, because, that was, it was such a beautiful and empowering experience to become a mother and to go through the process of birth. And as difficult as it was to have the loss of my baby, his being is always with me, and he has always been the inspiration for me to keep going and to keep wanting to bring midwifery to the world. So I would say that was one of my biggest inspirations. And of course, as a mother, my daughters are very inspiring. I'm so thrilled that my youngest daughter decided to follow the path of midwifery and has engaged in the work and has become a midwife and is really dedicated to her to the women that she serves and works with. And so yeah, and I feel very honored that both my daughters were actually able to have a midwife and home births, and that they chose that after growing up with me and seeing me run out the door all the time, and sort of the harder parts and challenges of midwifery, that for them to actually have the experience is really empowering and inspiring. So I would say my own family.
Yeah. And it touched me really deeply. Before we started to record this podcast, I said something is missing, and I believe towards the end of our sharing, I received it. It's so important for women to talk and to share, because this is the wisdom that got lost in educational system, in the healthcare system. And I always say for my firstborn daughter that she's my greatest teacher.
Oh.
And listening for you, reflecting that, gave me that big insight that our firstborns are our huge teachers, no matter the experience.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
sort of, I still doubt sometimes. And I think after this podcast, my doubt will be much lower until it eventually, I trust, disappeared.
Yes. Yes. I agree. I do agree very much, no matter what the outcome is or what the experience is. I think the first time a woman becomes a mother is a profound experience that no one can really tell her what it's going to be. It's just is. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely agree. So thank you so much for joining us today, Ava. It's been
you're very
playful, joyful, and so inspiring. And I would invite our listeners to support themselves on the journey of pregnancy if they are there or finding their way towards it, and supporting anyone in their community on this path of bringing beautiful babies and kids and human souls to this earth. So until next time, take a deep breath, invite in joy, and remember, we all deserve to feel good today. Subscribe, like. Until next time on Stress Less, Joy More.